Hey everyone, welcome back to day 4 of our interview skills course. By the end of this video, you will be halfway done with this course. So far we've learned about preparation before your interview, first impressions, elevator pitches, and today we will introduce you to various interview questions and how you should approach them and answer them. So let's get right into it. Today's layout will be grouping and explaining a lot of common interview questions. Then we will provide tips on how to answer them or what could make you stand out with these questions. The biggest takeaway from this is what type of questions you can expect, and it is up to you to formulate some unique answers that will allow you to stand out. You can follow along in your handout to note some key takeaways from this lesson if you would like. Let's lay out an example scenario so that I can provide example answers based on this job. You should not be copying down these answers because your job application will be different. This is very important. Each job application will require small amounts of adjustment to highlight different areas of your expertise and strengths that are needed for that job in specific. I will explain more into this later. Our example scenario that we will be using is that I'm a sophomore enrolled at Ohio State University, studying finance and applying for a job as a Target floor manager. As part of my college coursework, I am currently taking some business management courses like business operations. I have worked at this Target store as a floor employee for 3 years now, and I would like to take a greater leadership role. I believe that I have strengths in communication, organization, and I have made a great bonds with my coworkers around me. A quick note as I go through this presentation is that questions or thoughts marked with the word prepare before them on every slide are things that you can think of beforehand for the interview to use if they ask a similar question. You can write these down if you want to remember them for later. We would like to mention that we got some of our information from the Muse website and link listed below. We have also reviewed these other reliable sources that you can use for help for more resources on preparation for your interview. Please feel free to explore any of these websites and the dozens more that you can find online for extra resources. Let's dive right in with the general get-to-know-you questions. The first question that we are going to be looking at is tell me about yourself. This is where you would put your elevator speech in. If you have not already watched day 3 of this course, please look back to that video. It is very important and applicable to many situations even outside of interviews. Our next question that we are going to look at is why do you want to work at this company or why did you want this job? To prepare, you should think about what you have done or have interest in with this specific position. This is a great place to show why you are really committed to working at their company in specific. Do not give a vague answer here. Before you come to your interview, you can look up specific values that you like in the company, specifics about the position that appeal to you and your passions, and if the job is working with a specific person, such as a professor or head executive that you can mention about them. Let's take a look at my example that I have made if I was applying for the Target floor manager position. If they were to ask me this question, I would say something like, I'm applying for this promotion because I have recently attended the series of Target corporate workshops of leadership and management. I was inspired by the talk on females in the leadership positions and bringing more voices of the employees to the management's attention. And as a floor employee for 3 years, I'm empowered to bring new perspective and ideas to the management at Target. I love the environment and culture at our store, and this leadership position will allow me to better it. In this response, I've highlighted a few things. My initiative to be in a management position by learning from corporate, which shows great involvement with the company at all levels. I've also highlighted my loyalty to Target as of 3 years already as an employee. And finally, I've highlighted the new perspective that I can bring to the table. Let's look at a more negative, not so great example now. If I were to say something like, I want this promotion because I think I will do a great job in this job and put a lot of hard work to make our employees happy. This answer is too vague for a response, and chances are that every other candidate will be saying something similar or in the same ballpark range. There's no evidence to back up my claims that you will be working hard or that I will be committed at all. So here this statement needs more evidence and it needs experiences added to make it more impactful for the interviewers to hear. The next question is why should we hire you or what makes you unique? In order to prepare for this question, you should look at what makes you different and gives you an edge over every other candidate. They want a candidate with passion, so remember this. Think about all your experiences or accomplishments on your resume. Which ones out of all of those would be the most relevant to connect you to this specific job that you are applying for? It doesn't have to be the largest or most impressive item in your resume necessarily, and sometimes a smaller and more personally connected experience to the job could be more impactful. Let's take a look at my example that I would use for applying for a floor manager at Target. I could say something like, as a floor worker and someone who has directly experienced the day-to-day of a floor employee for 3 years now, I have an extensive knowledge of the inner workings and small things that contribute to an efficient staff compared to any outside hire. I've already established that I am in good and trusting relationships with my floor colleagues, which will allow me to be a great representative of the floor staff to upper management, but also I can connect to them and direct them smoothly. I have loved working for this company for 3 years and have a passion to continue to improve the place where I feel connected. Here in my example, I focus on the experience of 3 years and connection I have to the other floor staff. In this scenario, I do not have the advantage over other candidates of any business degree or an impressive education, which is a great example of how you can still highlight other experiences and more personal things to show why you are unique. You can also focus on things that relate to your passions and not just professional experience. The next question is, what should I know about you that is not on your resume? In order to prepare for this question, you can think about more personal and not professional highlights that you can include that are really creative and original. This is a very challenging question because it's so open-ended. You could choose to discuss interpersonal skills, professional experiences, personal experiences or characteristics, or many other topics. To best answer this, you can use the same thinking as the last question of what makes you unique or something that they would not already know about. For each person, this will vary quite a lot because there are many things that might be more personal to them. Definitely only mention a strength here though, because any potential drawbacks to hiring you should not be mentioned in this question. One tip is to introduce any special skills, interpersonal strengths, life-changing experiences or motivators, or things that define who you are. You can be really creative here and again, highlight things that other candidates may not have. The next category is about work history and reflection on experiences. We will be talking about questions like this tomorrow when we introduce the STAR method for answering interview questions, about questions like what is your greatest professional achievement, or tell me about a time when you faced a great challenge or conflict and how did you resolve this. These things will be discussed tomorrow, but we have a few questions that we will still discuss today that are more basic. The first question is about any past history. This can include why are you leaving your current job or why are there employment gaps in your resume. These questions may come up, but you should not be stressed about them. If you are an entry-level candidate with no past work experience, then you will most likely not see these types of questions. One tip is to be honest and prepare for what you will respond with if they question any of your employment gaps or past positions. These types of questions can leave a lot of people flustered or tripped up. So preparation for the most awkward and difficult questions is key. Use this past to your advantage. How did this past employment or gaps or history make you a more advantageous candidate? So focus on the strengths or positives of those experiences. For example, if an interviewer were to ask me, why did you take a 6-month leave of absence? I could respond with, I took those 6 months off during my freshman year of college in order to develop a new organizational method for myself. I was falling somewhat behind in my classes because I never had a chance to figure out organizational methods while taking such vigorous coursework. During that time, it was very beneficial to me in order to create an organizational system for myself and regroup, so now I'm able to be more efficient with my schoolwork. I think these skills can be applied to this position as floor manager with these past experiences of creating effective organizational methods for all the tasks that need to be done, which is very transferable to the tasks that I'm doing here. For example, I know how to keep accurate Gantt charts, which is one thing that I know all floor managers are responsible for more long-term projects. In this example response, I've highlighted a truthful piece of my past with a lot of honesty and reflection, but then switched the tone to show how it can actually help me improve in this current position. It shows a growth mindset and also leaves them with the feeling that this past employment or employment gap is not anything negative and could even be a positive to me. One tip is to do your research on how some of the specifics of the job that you are applying to include in your answers. So you can say how some of the experiences you have will contribute to direct tasks that you will be responsible for. In this example, I used the example of the Gantt charts, but that is just one thing of many. The next question we will be examining is what type of work environment do you prefer? Remember the last tip we mentioned. Keep in mind that here as well. Research your job beforehand and make sure you are familiar with what type of environment it will be in. Of course, you should only be applying to jobs that you feel that you will like or have the ability to adjust to that new environment. In your response, try to describe an environment that is similar to the one that the position will be in, just to make sure that the interviewers don't think that you have any reservations about the job. You don't need to make it fake, but keep in mind that if you don't like the environment of the workplace at all, then maybe you won't like the job as well as much, and maybe this isn't the right job for you. Environment is pretty important to consider when applying, so please take time to research this before you submit your application. Let's take a look at my example. I could say something like, I've enjoyed the community environment at Target while working here in the past, so I will be able to adjust easily to the similar environment that a floor manager experiences. I do prefer a more structured and communicative environment, and I know that Target management also emphasizes these values, which I find comforting. Our next question category is behavioral or personal. When I say personal, this means questions that will make you reflect on your character or inner self to give insight onto what type of person you are, not just professionally. Remember that interviewers are not allowed to ask or discriminate candidates based on gender, race, religion, place of origin, or family status. If they mistakenly come up or are talked about while casually conversing, then you should never answer anything that you are not comfortable with, and instead divert the conversation back to a professional topic. Our next pair of questions is what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses? This is an extremely common interview question, and you should definitely be prepared to talk about both sides of the argument. Where are you strong in, and where could you use some improvement? But let's start out with strengths. There are 2 tips that you can use here. First, keep it to a few strengths that you will mention that are really good and have evidence and explanations to back them up. You do not need to say something like, I am helpful, smart, hardworking, and better than most at computer skills, and keep rattling off different qualities without any explanations. Instead, focus on a few very strong qualities that you feel you possess. Secondly, make sure to provide some evidence for your claim, meaning that if you give your strength as public speaking and presentations, don't just leave it there. Elaborate on where you have developed the skill or used the skill to add credibility to your explanation. For an example, we can go back to my scenario to give a possible example that I could give. To respond when asked about my strengths, I would say, my biggest strength is my ability to lead and motivate my team. During my last 2 years of high school, I was the president of the Future Business Leaders of America chapter at my school. My responsibilities entailed setting plans and deadlines for all of the officer responsibilities that needed to get done to support our members. I devised a fair and strength-based system for our team to function as efficiently as possible and make it enjoyable so that we all motivate each other. Also, in the last year of college, I led our team of large business finance project where we did a summary of a company's finances. I was the team lead and made sure to organize our schedule and plan out all the tasks to make sure that everything was staying on task and all the research required was completed. In this example, I chose a very specific examples that the interviewer may not have heard about me before, and this is a new strength that was not on my resume and in my previous answers at all. Then I gave 2 examples of how in the past I demonstrated this strength. Never leave the explanation out for these strength questions because it makes the most impact. The weaknesses portion is quite similar in terms of the response layout. However, there are a few tips that you can keep in mind to improve your weaknesses answer as well. The first tip is to make sure that your weakness that you mention is balanced. It should not be something extremely detrimental such as, I do not like collaborating with any people and refuse to do it at all, because that is a red flag for interviewers. However, something like, I don't really have any faults would also hurt your chances because it shows that you aren't being honest or self-aware to any areas where you could improve. To make a great response, balance these two areas with self-awareness of a weakness that can be improved. The second tip is that you should always follow your weakness with a solution or action that you are taking to improve. This shows that you are taking active steps to improve and grow, but have enough self-awareness to admit the weakness first. Let's take a look at my weakness example. If I were asked this question, I could say something like, one weakness about myself is that I have recognized that I struggle with large and formal presentations and get quite nervous about them. In the past year, to improve on this, I have been volunteering in class to present information and taking a public speaking course as one of my college elective classes. This shorter example is something I might need to elaborate on, but it covers the main elements. It states a fair and clear weakness and then shows how I'm improving on it along with a plan. The next question that we are going to be talking about is what motivates you? This is a very important question that separates you from any of your resume skills. The company wants to see if your values and motivations will fit into their environment and the position that you are applying for. They want to make sure that you will fit in with the company's missions, values, and goals. Finding out what motivates you can take a lot of thinking, so this is a great question to think about in advance. To spark the brainstorm process of what motivates you, you can look at any past experiences or jobs and then think about which parts of that job have made you most happy or energized. Then examine those areas to see what from there is motivating you. Some examples of motivation could include improvement in sales numbers, helping customers, or finishing an achievement without the help from others. There are tons of examples, and you may also have more than one motivation. So after you brainstorm some of these motivations, you can narrow them down to one that you want to talk about by considering how does this motivation connect to the company values or mission. This will help make your motivations connect better to the position that you are applying for. You can also use a story or specific example of your motivation to strengthen your response. Let's take a look at my example for the position of floor manager. I could say something like, one of my main motivators is achieving and trying to exceed goals that I set for myself to focus on improvement. While working as a floor sales associate, I would always keep track of how many customers I was able to help and try to become a more convincing and helpful salesman. I would look for tips from more senior salesmen to give me insight on how I could improve. I really love this opportunity to try to improve at my job and reach these small benchmark goals for success that I have defined. I know Target promotes an environment of growth, and we have been led into many general goal-setting seminars, so this has been a very beneficial experience for me. If I were to be the floor manager, I think I would include these goal-setting and these targets to achieve for all floor employees in order to be a great motivator for our team overall. In this example, I talk about a specific story or scenario that I have used in motivation. Also, at the end, I connect the motivation to the new position. Both of these tips could help me stand out while answering this question. A bad example of answer would be if I said, I was motivated by intense competition between me and my coworkers. However, if I did not consider that one of the company values was a community feeling with support between coworkers, I would forget that this is in conflict. This would be detrimental to both me and the company that I was applying to because I wouldn't be happy in that environment, and the company may not be happy with my work since I would be less motivated. Keep this in mind when researching jobs that you will be applying to. The next section of questions is goal-oriented questions. The first question that we are going to be looking at is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? The most important piece here is to be honest with what you are shooting for in your career. Stick to stuff that you think that your professional life will look like in the future, and some achievements that you want to have by then, or other future goals you have. The interviewer will be looking for 3 main things as part of your goal. That you have set realistic expectations for your career, that you have some future planned out with goals and ambition, and that your career and growth will align with the position that you are applying for here. This last one makes it important to be honest with the interviewer because they can also give you insight into whether this job will be a good fit for your future goals, which is something to consider when applying for a new job for yourself. So let's put all these tips together into an example. For my example, I could say something like, In 5 years, I hope to be advancing to a higher leadership position within Target, where I can use management and my finance degree. I hope to become a store manager of one of our Target branches as well. And although it might take more than 5 years, I feel that I can bring great creativity and innovation to the table as a young leader. This answer is somewhat short, and you can elaborate more on your future plan if you would like. Just make sure to include a specific and realistic goal that is related to the job that you are applying for. You can show ambition and positivity for the future ahead, and also set accurate time goals that you can assume. If you were to say that I would become the CEO in a month, this question is quite useless for you because it would not benefit you and show that you are being too overestimating of your goals. This question is also quite free in how you want to respond with, so it should be an honest answer of what you think you can accomplish. The next goal-oriented question that we are going to be talking about is, what do you hope to get out of this job? This answer should be based on the job description or details itself, because you should be able to pick the most important parts of the job that caught your eye and explain those. Of course, stick to non-material gains from the job, so do not talk about money, benefits, or anything like that show that you are really just here to get the money and everything from the job that is not actually impacting you in the future. Pick out some of the features that you think will impact you most, and try to choose more significant tasks or opportunities that are gained by this job. My example could be, I hope to gain new leadership experience from this job in order to set up my path for my interest in a management or leadership position. I hope to learn the ins and outs of management in Target to improve on my own leadership and management techniques. I know this floor manager position will lead to an immense amount of learning in a lot of pieces of the job, so I'm excited for that. You can also elaborate more than this example with specific areas, because you will probably be given a much more detailed job description than the one that I'm using for this example. If the job is for a leadership position, there are some additional questions that may also be asked. An example of this is, tell me about a time where you have demonstrated leadership skills. We are going to be explaining this answer using the STAR interview method, so that will be explained on day 5. Stay tuned for learning how to use that technique in our next lesson. One leadership and management related question that might be asked is, what is your management style? Here are the steps that you could take to answer this question, or a question similar to this one that would walk you through the steps of explaining your management style. This is a less common question unless you're applying for a manager position, so keep that in mind. The first step is to define what a good management would look like for you. So what features and pieces would make the management successful? The second step is to add your personal touch to that management model. What would you uniquely add to this position's management? And thirdly, give an example of how you would use this management style, or how you have used it in the past, and make it in a more specific situation. So let's put it all together into one example that I could say. If I was asked this question, I could give the answer, I believe that a good manager gives clear directions and provides an organizational structure to keep the team working efficiently. In my personal management strategy, I would also like to do regular check-ins to make sure that each team member is on track and provide support where needed. I also believe that all information should be sent to upper management in regular intervals to make sure that both sides are communicating effectively. I remember one project in my finance project that involved everyone working on a separate aspect of the project. This meant a lot of independent work for my team, so instead of taking up a lot of time with meetings, I made an organizational Gantt chart to keep track of progress. With the help of this organization, we ended up creating a very cohesive project that was completed on time without excess stress of any of the members. The last set of questions that we are going to be discussing is questions that you would ask at the end. This can be phrased as something like anything else you would like to show us or know about, or questions you would like to ask us. Since a lot of people struggle to answer this effectively, we are going to be discussing this on an entire day on day 6 to focus on asking effective questions at the end of your interview. This way you can end your interview like a pro. For those of you wondering how to adjust your answers to fit the position that you are applying for, we are going to review that now. I hope that these examples and questions were helpful to brainstorm some ideas on how you can answer these questions. However, for each of the jobs that you will be interviewing for, you will most likely have completed different qualifications and needs for the job. Here's a tip on trying to pick the qualifications that you will be highlighting for your interview. Know in detail what the responsibilities of your position are and what qualifications or interpersonal qualities will make you a good applicant for this. For example, for a team manager, communication and presentation skills are very important. After you do this, then you can list out your accomplishments and strengths and experiences and keep in mind the top ones that will fit best into those job needs. You can also use these to prepare mock answers on what you will talk about for each question. Of course, you won't know the exact questions that they will ask you, but say, for example, you can prepare a list of your top 3 strong qualifications. Then you know that you can mention these throughout your interview. Great job! We are all done with day 4, which marks the halfway completion mark for this course. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will see you back for day 5, where your other mentor Simran will be diving into the 6 different interview methods, as well as a special type of interview question response. Bye, and see you next time.